about 14, 15 years old. And that was because I broke into a bank with them. Fast forwarded, worked in the IT field until I was about 17, then went into the military, jumped out of airplanes for a living, over all sorts of interesting foreign countries, and tried not to get shot at too many times. Came out of active service, went into the reserves for another 5 years, and was deployed for like 3 years out of those 5 years. And then went back into this industry. I got yelled at again, mid-late 90s. I got yelled at again by some folks over in the UK who are based out of Cheltenham, and got yelled at enough by them that they were like, all right, dumbass, you got two options. You either come work with us, or you can go stare at walls for an extended period of time. I mean, that was, in some ways, it was definitely like the Wild West, or, you know, the uncharted territories. Because back then, you know, you've got these individuals who, I mean, we were running riot all over the place. I mean, literally all over the place. And I mean, we weren't doing it from a malicious standpoint. We were just having fun. We were checking shit out. I mean, we were taking over bulletin boards, bouncing around countries, getting into all sorts of shit. But it was just done to find out what was going on. And, you know, this day and age, you do that, they will often, unfortunately, throw the book at you.
Yeah.
But did that. And then 99, I was seconded to a branch of the military, and we were doing war games against the US. And, you know, being English, you're like, you know, a bunch of bloody Yanks, let's have some fun with them. And so we had some fun with them, and apparently set off all sorts of little alarm bells in certain little bunkers in all sorts of parts of the world, to a point where we got invited over to the US in 98, 99 timeframe, and been here ever since. And,
Oh, so
yeah.
okay, so you were in Scotland all that time, and then
Oh
you
no, I
moved
was
back.
all over the place. I mean,
Oh, right.
I was born in Cyprus. So my father was British Air Force as well. So I was born out of the country, confused the crap out of immigrations over here. They're like, you know, white guy, part English and Scottish, born in Cyprus.
Wearing a
Doesn't,
skirt.
yeah. You could always see, you know, you walk through immigrations and the first quizzical question is, where the hell's Cyprus? And you try and explain, you know, middle of the Mediterranean. They're like, does not compute. I'm like, okay, last island before you hit Israel. And they're like, oh, okay. Bunch of wombles.
That's awesome.
Oh
We,
yeah, and then you get over here and they're like, so where have you traveled to in the last 10 years? And I'm like, where haven't I freaking traveled to?
oh, that's great. We got people. So a lot of the CISO community will be joining as well. I think we got people who are really new to the industry who wants to get into cybersecurity.
Nice.
More than 50%
Run
female.
away, run away, run away. Why do you still have some sanity and some life?
Yeah.
So this one doesn't have a hole. I thought this one had holes in it.
We can't see the holes.
I got so many t-shirts and I'm like, oh god, more holes. Yeah.
I think we
Here's what
got
it is.
Becky joining as well. Hey, Becky.
What's Becky?
There we go. Hello. Is it working now?
Hello. Yes. Oh, there you
There we
are.
go. Hello, hello.
You had a haircut.
Yes, I did. I finally made it down to see the lovely lady that does the do. So yes.
Oh, wow. I had to cut Clive's hair last night, and I colored my hair purple. I don't think you can see it. It's no purple. I wanted to
This will
color
be
it
done later
purple.
this week.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's good to see. I still can't go to hairdressers at the moment, so it's
Yeah. No, I had had two haircuts before, so I would think I was being pretty brave.
Did you go to the
Home
hairdresser's
haircuts.
house?
No, home haircuts. They were home haircuts. No. It was all a very brave home haircut. So
Yeah. I guess it's not that bad. I've also done that. So I've not cut my hair. My hair is now going up to like a meter length. So I had to get like first time I colored, but I think I did a pretty good job. I can see the purples here and there now. Anyway, so let's we've had a great day today. I was just telling Chris, the participants, we've had 49 people in the boot camp. and we've got all the other outside community joining now. So I'm recording the session, by the way. And what we're going to be doing is for you to do the talk. So Chris has done his introduction. Have you met Chris before?
I don't think we have met before, Chris. Apologies if we have. I'm a pretty bad memory as well, I should confess.
You know what? There's so many people in this industry. I know faces as opposed to names. I'm terrible with. That's why, you know, LinkedIn is great as like my new contacts calendar. Do you know so and so? Like, I don't know. Fucking LinkedIn, look up a picture. I'm like, oh yeah, I know so and so. You know, fucking drink with them all the time. Yeah.
That's what I do. I just go on LinkedIn, and if it's connected, oh yeah, this person, I am connected. That's all I know.
Yeah.
But cool background picture.
The world is, yeah. I figured that, I mean, not everybody else. I'm seeing a bunch of awesome background pictures. By the way, I love the Aurora Borealis. It's floating around. Catherine Alvarez has got that one up and running. I'm like, you got Tatooine up and running as well. I'm like, all right, sod the heck of you. I'm starting to put up a background. Otherwise, you end up looking at all my crazy stuff that I have in the back of my at the back of the lab.
No, cool.
Yeah, I just finally figured out how to do it. So I'm just showing off, you know, teeny bit of geek cred that I don't actually have anymore. So.
Becky, we got your slides. Nis has tidied up a bit. Do you want to? How do you want to present it?
I'm happy just to run through them if it still makes sense for people. Obviously, I didn't get to attend any during the day today, as I feared. It was just a full-on back-to-back with work. But I had a quick glance at the slides. It looks like some of the content may have dropped out in the update. So unfortunately, if the last two, which were the most relevant, if they dropped out and they're blank, then we might as well skip the slides, to be honest with you.
Okay. I'm up to, you know, have a discussion because it's so great to have you both on one platform, and then I think we'll skip the slides and we'll just do talk because that's more nicer that way, and we can all talk and ask questions because we don't get this chance often. It's so hard to catch Chris and you as well. So.
Big favor. It sounds like Jen just pulled in into the driveway. Give me about 2 minutes, okay?
Sure,
She's
no
just
worries.
coming back without the dog, so give me a minute, okay?
Okay. Becky, would you like to introduce yourself to the community? We got about 56 people joining now.
Okay, sure. Yeah, happy to. So, hi, everyone. Real pleasure to be here. Real pleasure to speak with everyone and to be able to share the experiences that I've had and to help with any questions that anyone might have. As I understand it, the group obviously is made up of people from potentially, you know, different types of backgrounds and industries and experience levels. And I'm always fascinated anytime I get to meet people from all different walks of life and expertise areas across our industry, because I truly believe that that's what makes our industry so special. It takes all of us operating at all the different capacities and capabilities that we have with all the unique perspectives that we have to come together to truly tackle the security problem. So yeah, really excited to continue to be part of the CISO exec group for that reason. But for myself, my own experiences and a little bit about me. So I am with Aldermore Bank. I'm CISO with Aldermore Bank. I've been in the industry, it's about 24 years this year, and I got started through a help desk role. So I had my very first role, literally picking up phones and basically saying, yeah, you need to plug that in, you know, or it's Control Alt Delete and reboot, you know, stuff like that. I will tell you, just to confess and show that everyone makes all kinds of mistakes, I did troubleshoot someone's problem for an hour and a half before I realized that they had not powered on the modem. So there's a lot of ways to learn in this industry, even the really, really stupid, silly ways. But yeah, so from there, I discovered security whenever I encountered my first ever denial of service. It was a race condition on an NT box back in the day. And I just immediately was like, what happened? I must understand it, you know, and I just dug into trying to learn about security and what that meant. You have to keep in mind that I'm of that older age where whenever I started learning about computers, you know, as we called it back in the day. Oh yeah, Becky, she's learning about them computers. That's how it went in Texas. And it was at the point in time where there weren't a lot of options for learning about them computers. So yeah, I basically got stuck in trying to do an MIS degree, which at that time was Management of Information Systems. And they made me take a COBOL class, a C++ class, and an accounting class. And I was like, wow, computers suck. And so I dropped out of the degree. And then I discovered the SANS Institute. And I took my first SANS Institute class in about 99, it was 2000 actually. It was in Monterey, California. And I wish I had the schedule that I'd accidentally signed myself up to, because I ended up completing, I think, about 300 courses in 5 days. I still don't know what the hell I signed up for and how I did it. But left with a stack of books that I had to carry in various bags because they wouldn't fit. They were all too heavy to bring back to Texas. And anyway, and that kickstarted it. That just started the whole journey for me. And people are like, oh, well, how did you pick your career and make your decisions? And I always like to tell people it's basically because I spent the first 10 years using what I call bright, shiny squirrel syndrome. It was basically like, oh, that looks fun. I think I could get that job. I want to try that. And so I just learned about all kinds of crazy stuff as I worked on it. But yeah, so I can see Chris is back, so I'll shut up for now. But yeah, needless to say, I'm not here to tell you there's any direct route in security in terms of paths and options.
Bright shiny squirrel shit sounds about the standard route in this industry. I mean, let's be. Oh, look, this is cool. I don't know if we've got her off for another 6. I just did it the other night. We were talking. Oh, I know what it was. We were on the Security Shit Show podcast that we do, and we were talking about, you know, how most humans don't realize the state of the union and what's going on. And we were basically talking about how we would stop things and stop the food supply and all this kind of stuff. Ryan starts talking about reversing the polarity on an MRI scanner and then and I'm like, oh, can we do that? And then I'm freaking scrolling till 5 o'clock in the bloody morning, downloading schematics for these stupid things, grabbing all the freaking source code because it's GE and they're crap at looking after their stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, yeah, we could make this work. I don't know what the hell it'll do. It'll probably go bang. It'll be really cool. And I'm like, you know, I probably shouldn't be thinking this way. So yeah, squirrel shit. Chinese squirrel shit.
I definitely think a lot of people, especially in the CISO community, have come up through various routes. I mean, Kevin, I'm going to call you out because I see your face on there, mate, but I know you came in through a pretty circuitous route yourself.
Yeah, it's probably similar to you, right, Frank? I've always been interested in stuff. And we had a virus outbreak at GE Capital back in 90s. I think I'm a similar vintage to you guys, right? And I managed to fix it with mucking around with Windows registry and deleting some files and rebooting and stuff before Symantec got a patch out for our AV. And then there was this new security manager at the time that was hiring a team who said, do you want a job? And I said, yes. And that kind of got me into security and playing around with fun stuff. Then we had to do a fake HR interview because he wasn't allowed to offer me the job without an interview with HR there. So we had an entertaining interview with the HR team there, or someone from the HR team, and he asked me things like, what's ping? And other pointless questions because it was just a bit of a game interview. But yeah, so a bit like you, got the kind of, was always a little bit interested in it, had an opportunity to do something fun, and then kind of been into it ever since then as part of my career. So yeah, definitely agree. There's one way in, right?
Yeah, I think it's being open to that, you know, and having the flexibility to be able to say yes to those types of things that come up, for sure. I think is provided me a lot of opportunities. Anyway, I'm sorry, Chani, I'll shut up and hand it back over to you.
No, that's great. Keep talking, because I was also thinking that when you're thrown in the deep end, I think that's the best way to learn always.
I think it helps a lot. And again, Chris, I'll defer to you as well. But I think for me, it helps a lot because that's how I like to learn. Like I like to be in it and doing and seeing in order to learn. Like I'm not a great person at being able to read and learn things. I like to have something to read while I'm doing it. So I like to have the stuff, you know, written down and really nicely described with great pictures. But yeah, I definitely like to do it to learn it. Yeah. How about you, Chris? What'd you find?
I think it's you hit the nail on the head on that one, which is, I mean, let's face it, if you take the hacker tinkerer mentality, it literally is taking something to pieces to figure out how it works, what makes it tick, why does it tick that way, and then the mentality is, okay, how can I describe this to others? What can I do to fix it? Can I improve it? Can I make it something else? But for a lot of it is, especially in this industry, probably more than a lot of other industries, a lot of it is the self-motivation side of it. So perfect example, everybody knows me from obviously the aviation stuff, hacking Nigeria, hacking the space station, cows, we hacked cows. All of that has been self-driven. It hasn't been somebody coming up and going, oh, you can go hack airplanes. I'm like, no, we ended up basically hacking cars for a couple of years because it was interesting. And that led to other forms of transportation, which now means I can turn ships upside down and all sorts of crazy stuff like that. But that's almost every single part of it's been self-driven. There's been nobody going, well, your job description is now this, or you have a project. It's 2:00 in the morning dreaming shit up and going, what do I want to focus on? What do I want to learn? And I think this industry, probably above many, gives you that ability to step outside and go, what do I care about? If I care about feeding kids in a foreign country, or I care about protecting people in my homeland, then go figure that shit out. Do a presentation or two on it, put something together, and then present it and help and work that way. We have so much flexibility, I think, in this realm that we are in to do that. I'm turning my background off because it's driving me nuts.
It's really cool. It was
It
really
is
nice.
cool, but it's still driving me nuts. I'm actually going to turn this from smoking red because I'm no longer
What's next, Chris? A disco ball, is that next?
Oh, tempting. I want one of those laser dispersers. I've got a bunch of multi-watt lasers in the lab for doing certain things with, and yeah, I'll play with one of those one day.
So Chris, you work on your own now, for yourself now?
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, I stepped away from, I guess the last two companies I was CISO and then chief, whatever the hell I was, chief technology officer or something. Not CTO, whatever the heck I was. Chief security architect, there we go.
Okay, security.
Yeah. Now I do the virtual CISOing thing for a couple of companies. For a couple of others, I'm purely the crazy hacker / geek. And then a couple of others, I'm doing a variety of different roles for them, either research or something else like that. I think at the moment I'm running through like 8 or 10 different companies that I'm basically keeping a fatherly overview on for a variety of different reasons. And
how do you find it, like
too.
compared to working for one company to working with different companies?
I enjoy it, but again, I think it goes back to the mentality. It's on one hand, I'm working with 1 or 2 companies, I'm building up their like MSP, MSSP offerings, and then I can flip that around. There's one organization I'm having a riot with, which we're actually dealing with artificial intelligence. So we're not even messing around with, the fake crap that most of our industry has. It's actually, what we're doing is we're building an architecture and a framework that we can measure artificial intelligence with. So that's fantastic. And then I flip that around, and then the next minute I'm working with Gabrielle over at Wiser, and I get a ton of interest. I have to switch my brain from being a complete crazy geek into somebody who can then take that and speak English. And so I love that challenge because we just put out the compendium, the dictionary, which takes a ton of our terminology and then turns it into English. And then so we're doing that and really the training. So I love it. It's challenging. And for me, I couldn't work any other way.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry, Chani, just to back onto that, I think a lot of people in the industry that I talk to, and again, Kevin, because you and I have had this conversation, so I don't want you to feel like I'm relaying any secrets here, but people I've talked to, we have, I think, a tendency to have sort of that busy kind of mind, and we get interested and want to participate, a lot across a lot of different opportunities. And the great thing within security is that it is such a broad field that once you do get stuck in, you realize how much capacity there is for learning across so much of this giant space, this giant field that we work in. I was just talking to a friend of mine over the weekend. He's the CIO for another company, and he's bored. And he said, you know, maybe I'm a grown up and I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. And he said, you know, have you ever thought about that? And I told him, I said, you know, and in all honesty, you know, with the big announcement on the group here, but I hit CISO and I was like, am I actually bored of security? And then I've had to sort of, in this last few months in particular, I've had to go through and really evaluate for myself, what else is there for me to learn and for me to tackle? I'm not saying I'm any sort of great guru CISO in like a year of being a CISO. Don't get me wrong. I'm not that giant of an ass. But what I have done is I've learned a lot. I've applied a lot of what I've learned. And because my brain bounces around a lot and I like to be really challenged a lot, I want to continue to learn new things as well, like what Chris is talking about. And so I think part of the great thing about our industry is there is that fact to do that and the capacity to do that. Part of the challenge of our industry is making the time and space and having the energy to tackle those things, especially as your career evolves and your responsibilities evolve. And you're, you know, if you have a family or whoever else depends upon you, you know, as those responsibilities evolve as well. So it's definitely something that I think requires a balancing act and requires a degree of insight as you continue to mature in your field.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd love to tell you guys that almost 50 years old, I have it all solved and, you know, the career is established and I'm well on my way, but it's a constantly questioning routine, really.
How do you manage your time, both of you? I know I've seen sometimes, Chris, you see a post before you go to bed, and then you see another post just before, just after you wake up. It just feels like you guys never sleep. So how do you manage your time with your busy schedules?
So my calendar is stupidly organized. I did a post on it a couple of weeks ago, about a week or two ago, and I took a screenshot and then blanked everything out. My calendar starts at 8:30 in the morning. I actually sleep in. My calendar starts at 8:30. 8:30 to 9, typically breakfast. From 9 o'clock until 6 o'clock in the evening is work, and it's blocks. I have blocks of time. I actually counted out. I have 15 companies that I'm dealing with. So from 9 in the morning till 6 at night is blocked. So I know between, 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, I am working for this client, and between 12 and 2 and all this kind of stuff. I then take a break from 6 at night until about 9:30 at night. 9:30 at night, the household is quieting down, pretty much so everybody's crashed out. 9:30 at night, I come back down to the lab space. I'm normally working till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'll work on either project stuff for clients or my own stuff. To your point, LinkedIn posts. LinkedIn's crazy for me. I probably spend 2 or 3 hours a day on LinkedIn, but that's my way of communicating with people. It kind of has been for the last several years, and I do a lot. And actually, I don't go out and focus on getting business on LinkedIn, but when I put the post out that I was leaving a TiVo, all of a sudden people are like, hey, can you help us? Can we have a conversation? All that stuff. So I've spent years cultivating it, so it works really well. But yeah, I'm blocked out. Saturdays, I take Saturdays off. End of discussion. Don't even try and bother trying to get hold of me. I will not do work. And then Sundays, I'm back at it. I'll balance the day between my time catching up around the house and then catching up on work, ready to hit Monday.
How about you, Becky? I'll ask the next question after that.
Okay, sure. Well, I think in terms of calendaring, yeah, I think you have to really pay attention to the diary when it comes to the work commitments, obviously. And I quite frankly suck at diaries. So it's been something I've had to really work at over the years. Mostly because I'm not really great at detailed stuff. And please, I'm not, again, I'm sounding like one of these jackasses. Is like, oh, I'm a big picture person. That's not it at all. I just really hate the tiny minutia of trying to schedule things and finagle things in the diary and stuff like that. So yeah, I had to grow up a little bit over the last decade and make myself actually do that properly. But then I don't look at what I do for like Twitter and LinkedIn. And even though they're tied to work and it's tied to my career, I actually enjoy security. So I joke a lot, especially here lately, because people started really giving me a hard time about popping up so much and doing a lot of presentations and things. But I actually enjoy it as a hobby. I don't have real hobby, believe it or not. I mean, we have 3 kids. I like to go on walks. I like to take them to the park, and do stuff like that. But I don't do I'm not a gardener. I don't have a stamp collection. I don't, you know, I've seen all the Star Wars movies, but I don't collect any figurines. You know, I don't have a hobby. So my hobby really is the stuff that's fun for me is, yeah, either learning about security or talking about security. I mean, I'll go and have a pint with a bunch of people from Rant because we can all use foul language and drink and talk about security. You know, that to me is an awesome evening, believe it or not. Yeah, so I'd love to tell you that I'm as great at the diary as Chris is, but outside of work hours, I'm really not.
I've had to be. I'm that. Then to your point, it's the same thing. If I'm not, those freaking squirrels, I'm done. Somebody be like, "Hey, we need such and such done," and I'm like, "Squirrels," and that's it. I'm screwed. If I don't put a block in there saying my ass is sitting down and working on something to do with whatever client it is, I'm freaking figuring out how to reverse engineer a bloody polarity on a bloody MRI or a planet. We messed around with that. What the hell are we doing? Oh, one of the projects we started to get involved in for one of the agencies over here is quantum entanglement. So that's part of my background is like mathematics and all sorts of other crazy shit. So I'm like digging like way down the rabbit holes of quantum entanglement. I'm building shit to split atoms in the bloody other lab space. And then the other stuff is I got all the EEG stuff that's actually pulling signals out of the brain. So I'll go bounce off on rabbit holes if I'm not focused, and I'll go deep on the rabbit hole.
Yeah, I also always find that social media and messaging is just a pain in the back sometimes because you're trying to focus on something, the phone goes off, that goes off, and it's such a distraction. Do you just turn off your phones or not look at them when you're working? How do you manage that?
Mine is always on mute.
Yeah, if I'm really trying to focus on something, I'll turn the phones over. Yeah, if I think there's only been a handful of times I've actually turned it off, you know, because I was focusing on something.
Yeah.
For me, I'll just turn it over and then I won't look at it because what I've noticed is it's that external stimuli. So a lot like what you're saying, Chris, you know, I find my attention so easily diverted, and I think it's also the way that work has evolved because of the way social media has evolved, because of the way that we interact has evolved, and I think that we have to be careful. You know, I think that if you want to focus, you want to do quality work, you want to learn something, you want to share something important, you need to take the right amount of time, for me anyway, to be able to do that. And I don't want to, even though I like to multitask, sometimes I don't want to be distracted and I want to be able to focus. So yeah, I definitely agree. You've got to sometimes tune out and turn off on some of that stuff.
Yeah, I always find I have a problem where I have my phone completely muted permanently. But when I see notification, it's just like I want to go and check what email is that, and it just distracts you so much when you're trying to focus on something. So I guess keeping it away is the better option when you're doing stuff. We got some questions coming in. So if you have,
and if you don't mind, if you don't mind, one thing, and probably Becky's finding the same thing as well. Part of the reason I actually shy away from the phone more than a lot of times is, for me, if I'm on the phone, I have to concentrate, and I can only really concentrate on the phone. Whereas Becky, you probably find the same thing. You know, I've got LinkedIn screen up over here and I'm having several messages. I got text over here. I'm working on a document. And quite honestly, I've probably got my headphones on listening to music at the same time. And I can do those things. And you can argue whether it's actually multitasking or it's like micro. It's you know, we're basically doing Kubernetes for the brain. I can focus on these pieces over here at each one time, and it works. You know, you can get 4 things done kind of at once, as long as you're careful. You know, there's that whole analogy where you shouldn't do that and you can only single focus, but I can't single focus. I have to have 2 or 3 things going on at once.
see, people say that men can't multitask. It's women who can multitask. That's so wrong, because I am one person that I cannot multitask. If there's a chat going on and if I'm talking, I can't do that. But Clive, on the other hand, I've seen him having 2 headsets in 2 eyes. So one conference call here and the other conference call here, and still chatting 200 people. I can't do that. And I think it is multitasking into because that I don't agree with that saying about women being able to multitask. It's so wrong. So at least for me.
I think ADD helps. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. We
Let's
got
go through some of the questions, guys. If
yes.
you don't mind. Kevin, there is one for you, which asked actually if staying fit and exercising actually helps you in your job, or you're able to concentrate more. I can't find exactly the question, but I think it was a very good one.
So yeah, so I think it does. I think I'm actually writing. I have a blog that I haven't written in for some years, but I'm in the middle of writing the first post that I've done for a while, and it's going to be around kind of the parallels that I think there are between kind of human resilience and team resilience and organizational resilience. I don't think you have to be super into it. Like I'm proper into it, and I do a bit of coaching and stuff as in my spare time. But I think generally being healthy and looking after yourself makes a huge difference to the amount of things you can cope with. So as Chris and Becky have alluded to quite eloquently, it's a busy role, right? So working in security tends to be pretty busy. The problem's more what don't you want to do than what you do want you to do, because it's just so much. And obviously as you move up, if you're CISOing or leading teams or whatever else, there's always going to be a huge amount of demands on your time. So I think being kind of physically and emotionally resilient and generally healthy definitely benefits you. So yeah, so I'm a huge proponent of moving, right? Just get out and move, go for walks. It doesn't have to be picking up massive weights. Just move, do a bit of mobility, go for a jog, go for a walk. I find as well, I don't know what Chris and Becky think, but also I often find I solve problems when I'm out for a walk, because it's when you're not thinking. So you're sitting there trying to solve a problem at your computer or whatever, or you're distracted with LinkedIn. You don't solve shit sometimes. Excuse my French, sorry. You don't solve it sometimes. But then you go out for a walk and you're thinking about something else, or you're chatting with your partner or whatever, and it comes to you. There's that whole left brain, right brain thing, right? And it needs time to go off and do some asynchronous processing. So I'm a huge fan of solving problems when you're out for a walk. I also use it as a way to like connect with my partner. So we'll often go for a walk and I'll leave this at home for a little while. And it's that 20-minute, half an hour walk when you're not distracted by anything, that you can be totally there with your partner or your kids or whatever. So yeah, I think getting outside and being active is hugely important, certainly for me.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kevin. We have a question from Kimberly, and many other participants ask the same. Any advice for getting work experience when starting out in the industry? Even entry-level roles seem to want some form of experience. So this question was repeated in similar ways. So your view on that would be appreciated. Becky, do you want to start?
Sure, happy to. So that's one of the things that drives me the craziest. Down to anytime I've ever gone into a company and I see that there are entry-level role opportunities for people, and then they have, different levels of experience required, it makes me absolutely insane. The first thing that I always try to do in organizations is to, first of all, strip that kind of stuff away. If it is truly an entry-level opportunity, then the types of things, in my experience, that you're looking for to help find someone who's best suited to an entry-level security role is where people, can show that they have a passion for problem solving, that they are excited about learning, that they're inquisitive, that they're open to challenges and being challenged, and that they're capable of handling, those kinds of conversations. Because that's what security is all about, right? It's all about these sort of crazy kinds of issues and incidents and events and things, that we run into. And if you have someone that has that kind of mindset and they're coming at it with that kind of perspective, they can learn anything you want them to learn. Then the real challenge is to discover, have you got a technical mindset? Are you interested in learning more about the techie side? Or have you got more of an interest around understanding risk and compliance and helping to govern, security? Or would you like to learn all of it? How would you like to sort of get yourself on the career path? So I talk about this a lot. I'll shut up in a minute because I could talk a long time about it. But one of the things that I think the industry is not doing itself a great service on is we're not doing justice on writing these kind of entry-level roles. And we really need to broaden them and expand them. So if anyone is running into an issue where you're looking at a role and it's got experience on there that you're not going to meet, odds are the company is not going to be very mature in terms of how it's handling its security program overall. Now I'm saying odds, because you will run into the company that's working on it, but just take it with a grain of salt and maybe move on. Maybe, maybe that's not the company for you in more than one way, and that's okay. There are a lot of opportunities out there.
You're so spot on that, Becky. I don't even have the patience to even say look into it. I just say move on. That's not the company to work for, because if they don't have the capacity to even understand that simple basics, then you're in the wrong place. But
unfortunately, they find people find it difficult, Chani, because you move on, but you go to the next one, and the next one is the same. So absolutely, as Becky said, it's a problem with the industry. And I keep seeing on LinkedIn as well, you know, people who graduate from university, they want to look for a job, and they go to many companies, but all of them is like, no, we need someone with experience. So maybe,
why would you even call it an entry-level job when it's not entry-level, right?
I know, but and many people are not looking for entry-level jobs anymore. That's another problem, right? Everyone wants people with experience, with, you know, 15 years of experience in Kubernetes and other things we are seeing that are absolutely ridiculous and don't exist, right? So absolutely a problem with the industry altogether. But maybe, Chris, do you have any advice on maybe what can people do to focus, or how do they get some experience?
Got a couple of thoughts on that one. I actually just dropped a couple of links in the chat, which might actually help a little bit as part of this discussion. Couple of things. One, use LinkedIn. Because if you can, let's just say you want to go work for GE. GE says, I want entry level, but they want 3 years in the CISSP, for which obviously we know that's bullshit. But if you have had a LinkedIn and you're active on it, and you can talk to somebody inside the group, or you can have a discussion with somebody inside the group, you can at least circumvent some of those discussions. It's the same thing with the B-Sides community, and the same thing with going to a lot of the conferences. Get out there, and you, at the end of the day, you are your own best, you know, ambassador. Doesn't matter who you are. Secondly, on that one, a lot of us, not everybody, but a lot of us in this industry that have got the bumps and bruises tend to look, we value experience, but experience doesn't necessarily mean job. It means coming to us and going, look, you know, I just come out of college, and I did this, but by the way, I took the vacuum cleaner, I took the Dyson pieces, and I made a hovercraft, and as it gets closer to the garage opens and it goes in and goes out. Or, hey, look, I did some work on Hack One, or Bugcrowd, or any of these other platforms where you can demonstrate. I did Cybery, because let's face it, most of it's free on there. Or I'm on Peerless and I've read this. Or by the way, I presented at a B-Sides about how to even get into this industry. So I think a lot of it is, a lot of us go, okay, you know, we all had to start somewhere. But what we look for is not somebody who's coming like this. In other words, give me something. What we want is people who are going to come and go, look, I've done A, B, and C. I built my own crazy shit. I've done my own research. I've published some stuff over here. So I've got the experience. It isn't necessarily getting paid, but I've donated time to Innocent Lives Foundation. I've, you know, I've worked at conferences for Hacks for Charities, for any of this other stuff. I've got a blog post that I do every week, or something along those lines, where even if you can't get a foot in the door officially at the company, you've got a track record of basically demonstrating being in this industry.
But it's the confidence. Sorry, Chris, I just wanted to add quickly to that. It's the confidence to do that. And I don't know about you, but it took me a long time to learn the confidence about having and hosting a conversation like that. And I think different people who've grown up and evolved in, you know, different walks of life, and even men to women obviously is really different. I think that getting that kind of confidence to be able to present yourself like that. So I think it's encouraging for you to say that. And then and maybe Kevin, you could back me up as well. But the thing that I would tell everyone right now is absolutely listen to what Chris is saying, and don't hesitate to look into your own past and look into your own background. I mean, I'll give you an example. There was a guy at my last company who really wanted a team lead role. And he's like, I don't have any experience. I don't have any experience. And I said, look, sit down with me and just walk through, what have you done prior to this job? Well, we got all the way back to, he was the manager for his university band. And I was like, great, that's leadership experience. I said, let's translate that into, what did you do for the band? What did you have to take care of? How did you, handle the management of that band? And then we converted that into sort of the right verbiage so that it was meaningful to be able to show that he did have some leadership capability. So even if now I'm not suggesting go back to when you were a freaking Girl Scout or something, but think back and think about, and truly don't hesitate to leverage, again, to Chris's excellent point, all of the different types of roles and responsibilities that you've had.
Yeah, I think it's that.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I think that Chris hit the nail on the head with the show willing, right? So if you come to me or any of us for like a role in the team, especially entry level ones, and you're like, hey, I've read this blog. You don't have to, if you're a bit shy, you don't have to want to contribute stuff or spoken at B-Sides, but you're like, you know, and even if it's the obvious stuff, I've read Schneier and Troy Hunt, and just the kind of stuff that's really easy to find. So you've gone and done a little bit of learning, a bit of reading. You might have done a couple of like free courses, whatever else. You're coming to me and going, hey, even though I've got a job and, you know, maybe college family, whatever, I've done a little bit of stuff extracurricular, and I'm really showing that I'm interested and willing to learn and wanting to get more into it. And yeah, it's been a couple of times when I've had people come along and they've been, yeah, I'd love a job in security. And it's just felt like they've seen that security is well paid. And when you say, oh, well, what have you done? What have you read? They're like, well, do a little bit of that. Yeah. Show willing, show engagement, show passion, because passion's going to get you far, because it's so busy and sometimes so pressured. Without that passion, you may struggle anyway, right, later in your career.
Something that I've, sorry, go on, Chris.
Here's a good way of looking at it. It actually follows on, sorry, Chani, it actually follows on from what Kevin, from what Kevin and Becky are both saying. When you come and ask a question of any of us in this industry, especially those of us that are like old fuddy-duddies, and most of the time it's gray when it's not colored, if you can answer that question on the first page of Google, you're doing it wrong. If you come and ask me a question about something and I'm like, oh shit, maybe I actually have to think about this, or you can't find it on the first page of Google, to me, it's the difference. It means you've gone out, you've done some of your own research, and then you've come to any of us, and most of us in this industry. I did a post last week about the shit show that we have in this industry, which is basically grooming. So pick your mentors really fucking wisely, please. There are some arseholes in this industry. You will have that conversation another day.
Yeah, I wrote a whole article about that as well the other day. When you're picking mentors, don't waste their time. You were so right on that, because if you're asking dumb questions, I call them dumb questions, because you can Google it and you find the answer, right?
Yeah.
Then you're wasting somebody's time, because why do that? You have to do your research.
So I agree that people need to be able to do their own research, but at the same time, I still maintain there's no dumb question. I would much rather you come ask me and we have a conversation around it than for you to feel like, oh, maybe I should be able to answer this, you know, because I just don't want people to feel like there's some sort of great mystery to security, or that it might just be that someone doesn't get maybe the entry level stuff. Maybe someone's stuck on, my God, whenever I learned how to subnet and start doing CIDR and stuff like that, you know, I was just like, oh, I hate this. This was like algebra all over. I bloody hated algebra too. But you know what? I stuck with it. And then one day it was like, ping, a light went off, right? But if I hadn't asked those stupid questions and I hadn't stuck with it, because I could have Googled my little heart out. Well, Google didn't exist then, but I could have read a lot of stuff without the right help. I just wasn't getting it, you know? So I guess the thing I would just want to share with everyone is just always ask questions. Just don't be afraid to ask. And so Kevin and Chris and myself and Chani, you know, as you see, all of us, we're here because we truly believe in trying to encourage and help people along in the industry. You are going to run into jerks. You're going to run into people that make you feel like, you know, ignorant, sort of, you know what, for asking them a question. You're wasting my time. You know, why are you here? You don't know what you're doing. You don't bring value. You're going to run into those people, but do not let them set you back, because there's so many more people in this industry that are amazing and will help you and will reach out to you and will respond and give you an opportunity if you ask. So don't be afraid to run into the occasional, I'm going to say, an asshole, because they're out there and you are going to find them on your journey.
I think it's a balance. So I think, Becky, to your point, I think it's a balance. I think subnet, perfect example. You're right. There's some crazy shit out there, and a lot of us are happy to explain it. But if you, these days especially, you Google subnet mask, you're going to get the 101 version and you're going to get the Cisco version. And you've got to take that first 10 minutes to read it. But when you still don't understand it, then reach out and go, look, I have no freaking clue. Can you explain this shit to me in English? So I get it. But there's still, I think part of it is, you know, so many of us are out there. I have one, I'm looking at the guy now, totally awesome kid, but hit me up over the weekend and said, hey, I'd love to catch up. And then sends me a message going, hey, can we catch up at 5 o'clock tomorrow? And I'm like, whoa. Time out. Number one, my 5 o'clock is blocked out like an idiot for weeks in advance. But number two, let's actually have a conversation here first. One, because I can do 6 conversations at once. But secondly, I kind of want to know where you're going without doing that. I want to apportion the time carefully.
Yeah, I guess you'd say.
Go ahead, sorry.
No, to say if you come and say, hey, look, I understand kind of class A, B, and C and the general principles of subnetting, but I'm stuck on how to work out the more detailed versions, right?
Yeah.
Just Becky, I just need to just pick you up on what you said. Don't give it away. It is all secret magic security, and it's all super difficult. You're giving us a way saying it's not.
Hey, let's face it, we're making this shit up as we go along. Our industry is all about making shit up as we go along. This is why we have almost as many acronyms in this industry as we have out of like several hundred years worth of military. Let's be honest.
It definitely is still evolving. I'll give it that. And it's one of the things that I think we run into as a challenge is the fact that we don't have a really concrete path. You know, one of the things I always tell people is if I wanted to become a CFO, I can tell you exactly what courses I need to take. I can tell you exactly what certifications I need to have, exactly what level of experience I need to have. Boom, I'll go get a CFO role, right? I interviewed for 1.5 years to get my CISO role. And the reason was because I had one company tell me, well, you're too technical. Another company tell me, well, you're not technical enough. A third company tell me, well, we can't see you in front of the board. Another company, you know, and it was because there was this lack of understanding around what a CISO is really required to do. And at the same time right now, different companies, because of that problem, different companies need a CISO for different reasons. And so part of the challenge for us is being able to find and fit, what do I want to do right now? What do I need to do right now, right? With the right company that wants the skill set that I bring to the table, because my unique experience and craft and path and everything is different to Chris, is different to Kevin, is different to Chani, you know, is different to everyone else in the organization, in the industry.
Yeah.
Hey, can I,
You actually,
Chani, okay if we jump in? Can we only ask questions in the chat?
You can ask question, yeah. I don't
Okay.
know, we've run out of time. What about you, Chris? Do you have time?
yeah, I'm good for.
I wanted to circle back around to something that Chris mentioned about picking your mentors wisely. And one of the things I understand from that, especially as a woman who is exploring, well, not exploring, but someone who is getting into cybersecurity, creating safe spaces. So I think something really important that Becky said was that, you know, she got rejection in the past, and look at her now. She's, you know, she's in her CISO role. So we might, I'm getting the impression that it's kind of like you have to be really, just like we had this exercise of 10 ways to stay safe in on social media. It's like these, we need to all have our like own personal checklist of how do we know if this mentor is any good or not. And I think a part of that is whether or not they are open to taking some of, maybe we do have some dumb questions, and maybe they need to say, you know what, that question you can Google. If you still have questions about that, get back to me. But that they're allowing us to kind of make stupid mistakes and be like, you know, you can learn from that. And I understood from Chris's post about the grooming is that there will be people who will try and take advantage of us. And just because it's cybersecurity doesn't mean that there aren't predators out there. So I don't know if we could kind of, if this is something that we could talk a little bit more about, of like, how do we know who's one of the good guys as far as mentors go, and who is someone we should kind of draw back from, but obviously not like naming any names. I just like some qualities or characteristics that might be useful to have.
So I'll give you straight up, my advice is build your network. So you, as you know, you're creating and embedding yourself into the cybersecurity industry and community, start to grow your network. You know, start to meet people, add people, get yourself, whether it's a Twitter account or Chris uses, you know, LinkedIn. I primarily only use those two for work. So those, well, obviously LinkedIn's only for work. I only use Twitter for cybersecurity related stuff. But for me, that's helped me in conjunction with in-person events, and we get ready to do those again. But that's what's helped me to grow and build my network. And then don't be afraid to use that network to ask questions. You know, hey, what do you guys think? Or what does so-and-so think about, you know, this kind of mentor I'm looking for, or this kind of need that I have? And don't hesitate to ask questions. And then if you do get into a situation and you feel challenged or you feel concerned, listen to, and someone said a while ago, I think they said spidey sense or something, but definitely if you feel that spidey sense going off, pay attention to that And don't be at all afraid or ashamed or worried or nervous to say, you know what, thanks for your time. I've really appreciated this 1 or 2 conversations we've had, and it's been, you know, great meeting you, and move on. There's nothing wrong with doing that.
I've always practiced that I would go for people I trust as my mentors, and I would have more than one person to advise. So once you get few opinions, then you can decide for your own, like what is best for you. So you don't have to stick to one mentor. And if you're going for people you don't even know, I'll be very careful. I wouldn't even pay money for that kind of people. I've done that mistake in the past. I paid like hundreds of pounds, I think about £700 for a mentor who claimed to be a really good one. It's just a waste of time or waste of money. And this is why you have to really rely on your network, like Becky said, build your network and build trust with people.
You should not have to pay for a mentor. I mean, I've had some phenomenal mentors. I've had 3 different CISOs who were my mentors, and it was because I asked for help. You know, I had a lady that was a co-founder of a successful startup, and again, because I'd asked for help, you know, but it's asking. That's why I'm such an advocate for not being afraid to ask questions. And I always say, you know, you don't have the answer to your question until you ask that question, but at the same time, you do, because the answer is no. If you don't ask the question, the answer is always no. So make someone else give you the no answer. Don't give it to yourself.
Excuse me, I've got a question. I've got a question. Probably for Chris or Becky, I don't know who can answer it. If as a CISO, how do you cope with the burden and pressure when there's a major breach, stroke attack, successful attack by a hacker, and it's caused a lot of damage?
You're talking to a hacker.
Yeah, I know.
And don't say I know. It's an adversary or a criminal. Terminology, please.
Okay, but how does one, how would a CISO deal with that kind of pressure, knowing that potentially, you know, heads could roll? That's the first question. And the second question is, how do we talk a lot about protecting our assets. We talk a lot about, you know, the cybersecurity professional, but and we talk a lot about, you know, risk, how much money we need to build into protecting ourselves, protecting our networks, our data. But what effort, I mean, in terms of the learning domain, what effort goes into actually catching the bad guys, not just protecting ourselves?
So I hit that. I answered a little bit of that on the text message or the chat message side of it, or on that already. So a lot of us wear multiple different hats, but we sit and do different camps. I do a lot of stuff on the government side, and that is where within like Dark Angels and some of the other agencies work, that we will go on the offensive. But that is a very specialized set of skills, and it should only be done by a very bunch of specialized set of people. The concept of hacking back and being vigilante chasing, I would highly recommend, advise, and tell you don't do it. If you want to get involved, that's a different discussion altogether. Go work for Innocent Lives Foundation and help catch child predators. It will give you an insight into what's needed. It'll help you understand how to do OSINT, intelligence gathering, information gathering, and building cases that will stand up in court. If you want to get into the really nastier stuff, typically that's on the research, reverse engineering, forensic side of the world. And then a lot of that's handled at the government level. That's very rarely is that done on the civilian side of the world. So that's the first part. Second part, yeah, shit happens. Be prepared. It really is what it comes down to. You know, run tabletops, understand how to run tabletops, understand how to run scenarios, understand how the NIST cybersecurity framework works, understand when shit hits the fan, you're right, you're at the pointy end of things. Make sure you have good people around you. You can't do everything, and it's how we've always done it. I've done it, typically I've gotten called into those teams, and I'll go in with a team, and it's us working the incident. It's us figuring out how to do it, and you play it by the book.
Thanks. Chris, I'm conscious I couldn't hear what you said about how much time you got.
I'm good for about another 10-15 minutes.
Okay, cool. That's great, because we got quite a few questions people are
asking.
asking.
I'm just getting them all run through. Yeah, it's
Thank you.
I don't mean to be an arse about it, but I am pretty sensitive, shall we say. We are hackers. That's a lot of us. We're hackers, we're researchers, we're tinkerers. We are the good people. Our own industry can't even get the freaking terminology right. You want to talk about us in a negative sense, you use the word adversary, criminal, whatever you want to do, not hackers. That's us. Our job, try to get it right. I mean, it really is what it comes down to. Quite often we don't, but we try.
But as Chris said, it doesn't really bother him that much. So.
Yeah. I think somebody coming into this field newly wouldn't have known that. They just know the word hacker, but they wouldn't use the word adversary. You know, so I think
that's media doing all that. And
no, that's our bloody industry as well. That's our own freaking industry. I mean,
well, the vendors love it, and the vendors play into it as well, because it helps them on the marketing front as they engage with and work with the media. So yeah, I would agree. We definitely do it to ourselves as well.
Shoot, most of the marketing people, I'm sorry. Most of them, like lawyers, they need to be taken out, put in a field, and Kenny Everett it.
But it's because a lot of them market outside the industry, right? You only have to look at probably the most successful marketing machine of a certain AI-led network immune system company. They advertise in The Economist and other non-security press. So your CFO and CEO come in and go, why haven't we got this? Do we need this? They play on those simple terms, because half of them aren't trying to advertise to you and me. They're trying to advertise to the people who are in the budget. So your CEO comes in and goes, Kev, why are we not using this? It's going to solve all our problems. And I have to go, well.
And I think that you've hit the nail on the head on this one. I think a couple of things. One, this isn't something we can solve. Our job as CISOs is not to solve security. It's not going to happen. End of discussion, okay? Our job to go in, help a business understand risk, understand the options, the opportunities, the remediation, the maturity in various other areas, but also not to go in just as security, to walk in next to HR, next to compliance, next to legal, next to manufacturing, with finance, literally arm in arm, and go, look, we've got risk, but so's manufacturing. We have risks, so's finance. How do we balance these risks across all the areas of the business? Let me help you understand in 30 seconds in plain simple English or business speak what these risks are, and then you make a decision.
And I just to actually tie this together with something. So Kevin, I see you tried to answer the strategy question in chat, and Chris, you just said something that to me helps to tie these things together as well. And it took me, again, a long time to understand this, because I didn't learn it anywhere, right? It wasn't taught somewhere that I could learn when I did. But it was to understand the business, understand how it makes money, understand what's important to the business. And once you understand what's important to the business, that helps you understand the prioritization for security in that business. So going into one organization and securing, creating a perimeter and understanding, data flows to different, that might be entirely different versus going into another business where they're all about SCADA networks and they're all about, wire gap, air gap systems. It just varies. It varies from company to company. And then the different kind of support and buy-in that you're going to get as well varies based upon the experience that you have on your board. So the way that they understand or don't understand security, and to the depth that they understand security. And then it varies as well based upon the support that you get from your direct line manager. So security still, as I think everyone knows, still does not have that seat at the board. So you're directly going in, you're directly seen as a member at the executive level. You're still reporting generally into, for me right now, I report into the COO. You might be reporting into CIO, that's weird. You might be reporting into CTO, also weird. You might be reporting to CFO, slightly less weird. But there's just a lot of different places that the CISO reports into. And for that direct line person, the CFO's level of importance is completely different than the COO's level of what's important to them. And being able to understand that for the company that you're in then translates into the type of strategy that you need to put together, and the way that you, and this is important to me, the way that you enable the business. We're not here to say no to the business. I'm not here to tell the business exactly what to do. I'm here to enable the business so that they can act against the threat landscape that we're up against. That's it. Short and sweet and simple.
That's so true. I mean, we were talking about this just about an hour ago, me and Dida, about, CISO does not own the risk. The business does. And that's the bottom line, where a lot of people, I don't know if you've seen that lame article a few months back where CISOs are alcoholics and going crazy, stressed and all that. But is it because of business are thinking that the CISO owns the risk and they should be responsible for things? Because I've seen articles where CISOs got fired because there was a data breach. And
in some cases that is actually, that's necessary. There's been a couple of instances, quite honestly, where I've had to go in and do breach incident response. And we've had those quiet conversations with leadership going, you were asleep at the wheel. End of discussion. You did pay attention to the golfing organization or the marketing, and you didn't focus on the basic simple stuff. You didn't take time to educate the people. You didn't take time to do the simple. You went off and you focused on, the golf tours and all that shit, as opposed to, I mean, there are CISOs that do deserve to be taken out, quite honestly, and fired. End of discussion. Because at the end of the day, we have one job. If you really, really think about it, anybody in the security industry, any single one person listening to this, we only have one single job to do. That's it, nothing else. Our job is to protect. That's it. And our job is to focus on that to the best of our abilities, given the tools, the resources, and everything that we have to hand. Communication, collaboration. We can't do it ourselves, but if we fail at that simple job of trying to help others, everybody understand how to protect, why are we doing this? Not in it for the glory, let's be perfectly honest.
So how do you kind of define then what kind of risk that you're going to be? Because if the business doesn't understand what the risk levels are.
You educate them. You educate them in a language that they understand. We're just talking about it on the chat, which is tabletops. For me, I come from a red team background. I come from breaking into anywhere, anything and everything. But to me, that doesn't help. That's a very adversarial view. If I come to you and I go, hey, I'm going to now spend the next week beating you up. And when I've done that, I'm going to hand you a report to tell you all of your flaws. And then I'm going to tell you got to fix your shit. You're going to look at me and go, you're an asshole. But if I come to you and I go, hey, look, we're having a meeting this week. I would love to come in. Come. I've got coffee. I've got donuts. I've got tea. I've got whatever's necessary, regular or gluten-free. Come in. Let's sit down. Let's have a discussion. Let's run some scenarios. Let's talk about what you're concerned about. Let's talk about what I'm concerned about. Let's run a couple of tabletops. Let's see what happens if one of your people plugs in the USB drive. Let's see what happens if one of my people lets a vendor offsite without changing default passwords. And let's run this safely. Hey, you know what? Let's go get HR as well. Let's also go get a couple of your team and a couple of my team, and let's sit down around the table. I'll bring the donuts, you bring the knowledge of the company, and let's work out what would happen in the worst case scenarios and the best case scenarios. And when we've done that, we will both walk out of there understanding risk, understanding the business better, understanding how each of us can operate. And when shit does hit the fan, I pick up the phone and go, hey, remember that exercise we ran last month? Yeah, it's just happened for real. Can we get everybody together, please? And it's much more collaborative.
Yeah. That's cool. We got more questions coming. I think I'm conscious about the time.
There we go. You win me with donuts.
That's just freaking perfect. Yeah, exactly. I mean, think about our industry, and I've got a slide or two inside one of my presentations about this. We have software called Kali. Now, Kali is a deity who basically thrives on killing people. Let's be perfectly honest. All right, we have ponies, we have pineapples, we have all this tech and shit that nobody outside of our industry ever understands. Yet our best weapon is always the human. So what do? We encourage the human. We turn up with tea or coffee and donuts, and we sit down and we go, how can we work together more effectively? How many of you have walked into companies where the network team doesn't want to talk to the tech support team? The developers are off on their own fucking island. So excuse my French, are off on their own island because nobody wants to deal with them. Everybody thinks the DBAs are freaking weird. And I'm like, okay, you all have one job. It's to protect the rest of the business. So as nice as I can put it, we're all going to have a kumbaya moment. We're going to sit our asses down and we're going to have a nice conversation about how we're going to get on with each other. And you've got, yeah, exactly. We have to be that. We have to be those facilitators. Because at the end of the day, from a security standpoint, we can't fix shit. We have to have everybody around us working with us.
Yeah.
I think that's like,
go ahead, Kevin.
I think that's absolutely critical, right? I've got, similar to Chris, I've got a slide in one of my presentations, I think just says go for coffee, which is the same thing, right? We spend a lot of our time being self-righteous security people, running around telling people what they've done wrong, why haven't they patched their shit, all of the stuff that's actually more complicated than you think. But we don't go and have a coffee and say, how are you doing? What's worrying you at the moment? What are the biggest things you're concerned with? I happen to have a team of engineers. Can I help you with some of that stuff? You know, be the security team that helps and engages and is part of your business, not the security team that's off to one side throwing rocks and complaining that no one cares about security. You'll pay dividends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. You have to enable the business, and you have to work with the business. I've seen, and apologies for not typing. I'm on an iPad, so I'm not typing, because if I start to type, you're all going to just feel the wrath of my fast fingers as I clickety clack across the iPad board. So sorry for that. That was my bad move here. But I saw Karen's question around the facilitation of this, and if you have an organization that's not even open for that, then yeah, if you either feel like you're not at the right seniority level to impact change, or even at the seniority level that you might be at, then they're not listening and you're still unable to impact change, then yeah, sometimes you may have to leave the decision to leave for another role. I've certainly moved on from organizations where I felt I wasn't having the impact that I wanted to have. And I think that it's pretty common to run into, and there's nothing wrong with that, especially where you're in, what you want hopefully is an organization where you can bring your whole self to work. And I think that that's important, to be able to bring, all the bits of your personality and all the capabilities to the table. And so if you're in a company and straight away they're saying, we're not even going to try that, that's just not even going to work here, then maybe it's not a great environment to do that.
Yeah. I think authentic leadership is quite important.
Yeah, Becky, that's a freaking huge point. I mean, as much as we want to protect, we can't fix everybody, and I think that's a big part. It took me a long time to learn that. Still not good at it. I mean, I fired a client a week and a half ago because I got to a point I'm like, they're not listening. And I've got two different. I got revenue clients, I got equity clients, and this was a revenue client. And you're like, it's going to take a hit, but we can't fix everybody. And Becky, I think a lot of us in this industry want to be able to do that, but it's tough. It's hard. And I think you hit the nail on the head. There's only one of each one of us. We're all unique in our own special snowflake way, but there's only one of us. And quite honestly, there's not enough of us to go round. So you kind of have to focus your efforts on who you think is actually going to make the most impact. Yeah, that's a huge one. Good call.
Thank you, guys. And I think we are running out of time, and we could go on talking about this for like 2 hours, I think. This is such a great discussion. We're having Chris again this week, sometime later. Thursday, right, Chris? Yeah, and Becky tomorrow. So
yes.
I think you meant Kevin, but obviously Chris can join us as well.
Yeah, Kevin, Chris is on the boot camp on Thursday, and Kevin, you're coming up on the emotional resilience one. I think we're gonna have that's on Thursday evening. So we're gonna put this one on YouTube. So I would ask you guys to go on to CISO boot camp. Sorry. I'm tired. She's a YouTube channel and subscribe, and you will see the recording on there. And a lot of our videos recordings are very authentic. We don't do any editing, so there's the swearing, there's words, everything's there. But that's what makes it more enjoyable and interesting as well. And yeah, thank you so much for everyone. Any last words before you go, Becky? I'll start with you.
Yeah, sure. Happy to say just good luck to everyone. First of all, you've gotten here, and that's amazing. Congratulations for getting your foot in the door with this. Absolutely make contact with everyone. Get on LinkedIn if you're not there. Link up with everyone that you can. Follow all of us. Reach out on Twitter. Definitely use your network and grow your network, and keep asking questions.
Thanks. Chris?
I'm actually going to echo what Becky said. Ask another question. I mean, that's honestly, if we could get the general human population to ask another question, we would reduce fraud by some crazy amount. And simple as that. So yeah, welcome everybody.
Thanks. Any words from you, Kevin?
Yeah, just be passionate and curious, right? If you want to get in security, it's got to be something you love.
Cool. Thank you very much, and have a good evening and have a good day, Chris, to you. And I don't know, we got so many people from all around the world, so have a good day, everyone. And take care and stay safe.
Thanks,
Thank
Chani,
you.
for
Right.
setting this up.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
See you tomorrow, everyone.